What's up, world? Welcome to a new episode of the BrandonJaneauShow. I bleed sports, man. Hopefully, you guys enjoy this. As you know, I'm the host of I Bleed Sports, Brandon Janeau, like I just said. Um, man, oh man, oh man. So much sports going down. So many things to get into when it comes to this world of sports. But first of all, let's get into it this way. All podcast platforms everywhere, Brian Janeau Show, as you know. Social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, Brian Janeau Show. And of course, YouTube channel, Brian Janeau Show. Subscribe, comment. I think you can notify. I don't know if you can hit the notification on my YouTube channel. I don't know. I don't think I'm that high up yet where you can hit the notification. But if you can, hit the notification button. So when I, drop a clip or post a new video, you can be the first to see it. So I really appreciate that. So let's get into it, man. Like I said, tonight is I Bleed Sports. It's Tuesday, so I do I Bleed Sports. Of course, I'm going to talk about football. The final week of college football was this past week. Conference championship weekend is this week. It starts Friday. I'll talk about that. They just gave out the top 25 rankings. Their top six. Of course, you know me. I do my crazy six. I also be talking about my eyes on college football for the conference championship weekend. What games I think is going to be very intriguing moving forward. Of course, NFL. I'll be talking. Oh, I'll be talking about my big four levels of warning for the NFL. But before I get into all that, that's at the end of this episode. But of course, I got to start off with this. So So Saturday night was um a big fight. David Benavidez, sorry about that. David Benavidez fought Demetrius Andrew Andre uh you know 1-on-1. Uh and David Benavidez, and they both came in undefeated. David Benavidez, of course, won the fight, TKO'd him in the sixth round. Uh, actually, Demetrius Corner literally told the ref, like, yeah, we're done. Like, he ain't going back out there to fight that dude. Are you crazy? He's just beating the shit out of this man. Are you crazy? I did not watch the fight, and I wish I would have. But I looked up and because I had to do my podcast after the Survivor Series went off, Wrestling Life that I do. And I looked up and I'm like, oh shit, Survivor Series went off at like 10. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a chance to watch the fight tonight. That's great. And by the time I looked up, the fight was over. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. By the time I'm like midway through the episode of Survivor Series for the Survivor Series, and the damn fight was over. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Um, and after the fight, David Benavidez was like, yo, I want Canelo. Point blank period. I want to fight Canelo. Um, Here's the thing, man. Uh, the thing about boxing that I love about boxing is that it is a sport that is a problem solving sport, right? Same thing with wrestling. Same thing with same thing with wrestling. Same thing with MMA. It's a combat sport. Um, the one thing about boxing that has fucked up the boxing world, yes, judging, of course, but it's also the boxers choosing who they want to fight and when they want to fight them. And that's a worse situation. We talk a lot of shit about how Floyd fought at the end of his career, but Floyd still fought everyone. He fought everyone. Ricky Hatton, Victor Ortiz, Oscar De La Hoya, Sugar Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, Manny Pacquiao. He fought them all. He fought them all. Juan Marquez, like he fought them all. He fought them. He did fight them. The thing about Canelo is he isn't fighting them all. Charlo was like the only one that he we had been asking for years to get that fight, and he finally decided to fight one of the Charlo brothers. Caleb Plant was another one. It took a minute, but he got it done. This is a fight that I think he needs to do. And I know people are gonna sit here and say, "Well, his legacy is already cemented. He doesn't need to fight him." Yeah, the fuck he does. Yeah, the fuck he does. Who the fuck told you that? Yes, the fuck he does. Canelo has to fight David Benavidez. He has to. You're not moving up to go fight uh Beavidov again. You're not fighting Beavidov again. Demetrius Beavidov? Oh no, he will hurt you. No, 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 no. I would love to see that fight. The one thing about boxing in 2023, which is crazy to say, in 2023 we got a lot of fights we have been asking for years. Tank and Ryan Garcia. Even though I knew Tank was gonna win that, it was still a fight a lot of people was pining for and wanting it, and we got it. Especially Crawford and Spence. We finally got Crawford and Spence to fight each other, which was. Now, did it go the way we expected it? Fuck no. I thought that fight would be way more competitive than what it was. Now, if it's true what really is being said that Spence had a broken ribs before he cracked rib before he got into the ring with Crawford, then and he decided not to take a break, that he did not want to postpone the fight and go get fixed and let it heal up, then 100% thank you, Spence. But at the same time, damn, Spence, because you got destroyed in that fight. Like that was, but you can tell something was wrong with him the entire fight. So it kind of does make sense of why he kind of was probably like, oh, this is probably why he was in the way he was. I don't think Crawford just 100% beats the shit out of Spence like he did. Like that was very hard to watch. As a fan of both men, that was a very hard watch, a very hard fight to watch. Being in a bar with everybody too, it was like, oh my god, this is bad, man. But if that is the truth, that he has broken ribs when he had a cracked ribs, and when he went into that match, knowing that he probably had hard time breathing, stamina control, and all that, it could explain. It could explain. But the year of 2023, man, it gave us a lot of iconic fights. Tank, Garcia, Crawford, Spence, Lomachenko, and Henny. Like, we got a lot of fights, man. A lot of fucking classic fights that we've been, Felton and the Nightmare. Like, we finally got fights that we were like, yo, this is what we want. We finally got it, man. Teofimo Lopez and Josh Taylor. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got a lot of great fights this year for boxing. Lomachenko and, like I said, Lomachenko and Henny. We got a lot of fights that we got a chance to watch this year. Um, and I'm very happy about that. I don't know what 2024 is going to bring in boxing, and we got I think like one more real big fight before we end out the year, and that's Regis Prograis and Devin Haney. I don't know what's going to happen when it's all said and done, but I will say this: I am looking so forward to 2024 with boxing, and hopefully, Canelo and Benavidez will be that match in 2024. We already got one, Fury and Usyk. Uh, it's some boxing matches, man, that need to be done in 2024. If Henny loses to Regis, and yesterday or today, I think it was a notification that Lomachenko and Kambosos is gonna fight each other. Lomachenko's gonna easily win that fight. Like, I'm not trying to diss George Kambosos, former light heavyweight champion, undisputed, but that's not a good fight for you, guy. I'm gonna be honest with you. You could barely beat Henny, and Lomachenko almost beat Henny. Like that is probably to a lot of people did beat Henny, but you know we shall see. But I can't wait to see what 2024 has to bring. The fight Saturday. Vita Vita is just it's different, and I think that is kind of why I feel like Canelo might not try to fight him. It's different. He's different. You can't catch up to. He let. This is how crazy this is. He let Demetrius beat him the first 3 rounds. Like Demetrius getting all his like his combos in, hit him. By the fourth round, when he finally caught him, he tagged him. Oh my god, he hit the fucking. He was like, "What the fuck was that? The fuck was that?" Yeah, it was not. It was not good. It was. It wasn't good. It wasn't good at all, man. Hopefully, 2024, like I said, brings more fights, more atmosphere, man. I remember being in a couple clubs, man, bars, watching the Tank and Garcia fight, watching the Crawford and Spence fight. It's a different type of energy when you get excited about boxing, man. And that's the one thing I've always said, man. The one thing about boxing that I love so much is that boxing is the king of combat sports, despite what people want to say. It's still the king of combat sports when you give us the matches, and that is the key. When you give us those matches, so looking forward to it, man. So there's two basketball stories, three really, but I'll talk about the other one on my other series. I do point of view of random shit, because that's more of a real legal issue and a real crazy fucking issue that I will get into with that. But we'll talk about two stories that have been going absolutely nuts. So last week, I think, Golden State Warriors played the Phoenix Suns. It was the first game back for Chris Paul, who's now a Golden State Warrior, back in Phoenix, playing the Suns. And his friends, his family were there. Phoenix was giving him his flowers for, bringing them to the NBA Finals for the first time since 1993. Like, yeah, the man deserves his flowers. And he got ejected from the game. Referee Scott Foster ejected Chris Paul from the game. Now, you probably hear this and think, well, that's normal. It would be normal if Chris Paul and Scott Foster didn't have problems for like the last, what, decade? Like a decade, these dudes have been having problems with one another. Scott Foster is an NBA referee, an official. He calls these games. So it already looks like an abuse of power that you have chosen to use your authority to affect basketball games like you have when it comes to Chris Paul. Now, Chris Paul after the game got on the podium and explained what the problem was. He technically didn't say what the problem was, but he explained what the root of the problem was. That Scott Foster said something to Chris Paul's son. Chris Paul addressed him, not just to him, but the league offices. They had meetings, conversations about this shit. And then you see what happens last week, last Wednesday, I think. And he does that shit to Chris Paul in an NBA game. No reason. Just ejects him. People have been saying, what do you do? How do you rectify this situation between Scott Foster and Chris Paul? It's very simple. Scott Foster should never referee Chris Paul's games. He should never referee Chris Paul's games. If you know that he has, and the league knows this, by the way, the league assigns these fucking refs to these games. So for you to literally know that these two got problems with each other, and that Scott Foster has this vendetta against Chris Paul, and you don't do shit about it, you are cool with tampering with the game. So you are cheating, NBA. You are cheating. Scott Foster's Chris Paul has a record. You did it? You notice? Chris Paul has a record ever since they started having problems when Scott Foster has refereed his games. I think he's like 3 and 12, and I might be low balling the win. I might be low balling the wins. I think it might be 2 and like 12 or some shit. The man never wins games when Scott Foster is the referee. I think it's like some. I think I was watching on first. I think it was like this. He's like 7 and 25 or some shit. Like the man never wins when Scott Foster is the referee of the games. Matter of fact, go back to the 2021 NBA Finals. You want to know how many games Scott Foster refereed in the NBA Finals for the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks? It's so bad that the league, literally, this is how fucked up this is. ESPN around that time used to put up a stat every time Scott Foster refereed Chris Paul's games, he has lost in the playoffs. So ESPN, you did know something was wrong because that's not a fucking coincidence that you have a stat telling us every time this motherfucker has refereed Chris Paul's games, he has lost them in the playoffs. Come on, come on now, come on now. I'm not saying that the league is rigged, but the league might be rigged a little bit here. Chris Paul should not be being. Chris Paul should never be refed by Scott Foster ever again. And I know people will sit up here and say, "Well, Brandon, that's fucked up. How you gonna say that?" Because it's personal. This isn't just a referee having a problem with someone because of it. No, nigga, it's personal. This man has personally went out to literally fuck up this man's team. He is giving his team a competitive disadvantage every time he's on the court with his team. And you have the power to call any fucking foul you see fit to call in the. It could be at the beginning of the game or late in the game. You could give somebody 3 fouls just for doing one thing. That's it. They ain't really hit the motherfucker at all. Barely tapped them. Foul. Now you hurting the team. They can't have that significant player on the court because you got a problem with Chris Paul. That's a competitive disadvantage. What the fuck are you doing? The NBA should make this a rule. You cannot. It should be called a Scott Foster rule because this is ridiculous. It's one thing to do it in a regular season game that nobody gives a shit about. But now I'm thinking, like, how many games that this motherfucker has really ref for Chris Paul since this incident has happened with them two and his son? How long has this been going on? Really? Because if that is the case, the NBA has known Scott Foster has a problem with Chris Paul. And yet, you have chosen to let him still referee this man's games in the most crucial fucking times of this man's career. You have chosen to let him still ref them games. What the fuck? What the fuck? The other incident is an incident that happened last night, and that is Russell Westbrook. Now, I guess a fan was saying some crazy, reckless shit to Russ. Let me explain something to people. Russell Westbrook about that life. That nigga will probably do a Ryan Artest. Run up in the stands and choke shit out you. You might want to temper down on the fucking talking. Hey, bro, I know he went to UCLA, and I know, nigga, he from Cali. That nigga will fucking choke you. Don't fuck with Russ, man. Russ, that nigga, bro. Don't do that. No, no, no. We gonna have a Malice in the Palace, a Malice in Staples, or whatever the fuck they call that shit down. Like, keep fucking with Russ. Y'all gonna find out. But, but um, Russ, uh, Russell Westbrook, has this game and last night, and the fan starts talking crazy, talking reckless to Russell Westbrook, and Russ responded like, "Yo, like, chill on that shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, chill on that shit." And I saw a lot of people today, and this is the same shit that happened a couple years ago with Russ, where I think a fan in Utah was trying to like attack him or some shit. It was doing the same shit, talking crazy to Russ, and Russ was like, "Yo, Meet me outside and say that shit to my face. Like, meet me outside and say that shit to my face, bro. Like, and this is where the overwhelming problem kicks in, right? At some point, right? You have to ask this question of when is a fan crossing the line as a person? Like, at the end of the day, man, you could be a fan. Listen, I do the same shit. I go to these sport events now a lot more. I went to the Rockets Pelicans game. I went to the Saints and Texans game, and usually, man, with these fan bases, man, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It's usually a good setting. A lot of people don't have that type of energy in their hearts, man. That's really just how I have experienced certain shit. Everywhere I've sat in these types of games, I've not felt threatened because I cheer for the Saints or I cheer for the Pelicans. I don't feel that way at all. But I feel like with certain fans, they feel like if I paid my money, I paid your income, I pay your salary, I should be able to say whatever the fuck I want to say to you. No, no, you shouldn't. No, you shouldn't. See, this is the reason why I think people need to be reminded of the malice in the palace. I think people need to be reminded, which means I think you need to run up in the stands and choke the shit out of somebody. I think it needs to happen. I think it needs to happen, and I'm gonna explain why I feel that way. Because now people are getting to the point where you think you can just say whatever the fuck you want to say to anyone, and you're gonna get away with it because you're a fan and they're an athlete, and they're not supposed to get outright at you. You're a fan. But when you start talking personal shit, like his family and his kids and his wife, and bro, when you start hitting different levels of just the game, if you booing me because I'm an opposing player from a different team, I do it. If you booing me because I suck tonight at this game and I'm not good tonight, okay, cool. But when you start chanting and saying shit about my family, that has nothing to do with my gameplay, by the way. Now we got a problem, which will incite somebody to say, "Hey, bro, talking all that shit. Hey, man, meet me outside. Hey, meet me outside. Like we ain't gotta do all this shit. Meet me outside." That happens too. So I think people need to be reminded of malice in the palace. I really do think it. I'm getting to that point where I'm like, you niggas are getting a little bit too over aggressive with this shit. Y'all need to get reminded to what malice in the palace look like. Because I'm starting to realize you motherfuckers don't remember how that all like fan got a little too greasy with the talking. Niggas ran up in that bitch. Nigga ran up in that. Nigga ran into the crowd. Nigga was like, oh shit, wait a minute. That shit, yo, I still remember that night, bro. That shit was fucking crazy. Yo, my dad called me and was like, you watching the game? I was like, nah. Why? I said the game is over anyway, right? He's like, man, these niggas just ran into the crowd, beating up the fans. I said, what? These niggas on live TV. This shit was on ESPN. Them niggas ran into the crowd and started beating up the fans. Yo, that shit is fucking hilarious. Cause they deserve that shit. You don't throw no drink on no fucking grown ass man that weighs 200 and some pounds. What the fuck is wrong with you? Are you like a buck 50? What the fuck is wrong with you? What are you doing? No, 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 no. But them fans, y'all are getting a little bit too over the top with it. Y'all been getting crazier and crazier as the seasons progress, but especially in the NBA. Y'all motherfuckers take fandom to a whole nother level. Y'all think just because I play on this team and on this and I do this sport for real, that I won't choke the shit out of you on camera. Like it doesn't matter. Nigga, I will pay the fine, take the suspension, and be happy about that shit. Like y'all better chill on that, man. Chill on that shit, bro. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into it. All right, so football has happened. Of course, y'all, as y'all know, I do college and I do an NFL, and I do college first. So let's get into it. Um, this past week, nothing too crazy. A lot of close fucking games. It's rivalry week, so yeah, Florida stayed in Florida. was a close game, which I kind of said last week. If Florida State did not have a great game against Florida, you start looking at Florida State a little differently. But this Saturday, they have a chance, thanks to the ranking that just came out, to make the playoffs, the college playoffs. Now, me personally, I wouldn't put them in. That's just me. But I've not had them in my college, my crazy six for like 2 weeks now. And it doesn't change tonight. So I'm going to just explain that too. But then the team you needed to win to build a stronger resume, they lose to Kentucky, Louisville. They lost to Kentucky Saturday. You're like, what the fuck? What? You're like, what the fuck just happened? Washington almost lost to Washington State. I mean, Georgia almost lost. I mean, Alabama almost lost to Auburn. Georgia almost did lose to Georgia Tech. It was a lot of close calls, man. A lot of close calls, a lot of close games this past rivalry weekend, and I'm happy about it. I think college football is better when it's not so easily, easily like, yeah, this team should supposed to win. Like, I like it when it's actually a competitive game. Especially when you play, and I'm seeing a lot more teams that doesn't have anything to lose anymore. They get to the point where they don't have anything to lose. Start to get back to that competitive, like, I don't give a shit. Like, I could end your season. I could ruin your season. My season's already over. I could ruin your season, and that'd be great. Like, that'd be so much fun. But yeah, a lot of close games, a lot of close calls. Which brings me to my crazy six for this upcoming week. The conference championship week. My crazy six goes like this. If you know anything about me and you know how I do this, you already know I start from one, bring it all the way down to six. Um, so let's get into it. At number one, since I've started this crazy six, they have literally been the number one team, and that is the Michigan Wolverines. The Michigan Wolverines did exactly what the fuck I said they were gonna do. Beat Ohio State. Listen, man, 30-24. They beat Ohio State in Ann Arbor without Jim Harbaugh. Ohio State, best team in the college football. Get the fuck out of here. Um, Michigan was the better team. I don't know why people keep acting like Michigan is some terrible fucking team. You realize Michigan has played 12 games this season. They have had their head coach for 6 games this season. 6 of the 12 games that the Michigan Wolverines have played have been without their head coach. 6 of the 12 games Michigan has played this fucking year has been without their head fucking coach. And they're not the best team in college football? What the fuck is going on? Like, they have played 6 games without their leader, their head fucking coach, and they have won 6 of those games. They have played 6 games with their head coach, and they have won 6 games. And now, guess what? This weekend, guess what happens? Jim Harbaugh, he comes back and he plays Purdue. No, they play Iowa this weekend. And if they beat Iowa, they're in. I literally had to watch them just put Michigan at number 2 and Georgia at 1, and I had to hear people lie and say, "Well, Georgia's the best team in college football." No, the fuck they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. Michigan's the best team in college football. You're fucking delusional if you think Georgia could beat Michigan right now. That shit's crazy. They cannot beat Michigan. And I'm an SEC kid, and I can literally tell you, Michigan could get Georgia. Michigan could get Georgia. Hopefully, we get this opportunity to see this year. I hope that we get this opportunity to watch Michigan versus Georgia national championship game because we were robbed last year. So hopefully, we get the opportunity to watch this season. But if not, at least this team will be there because at number 2 is the Georgia Bulldogs. They're also undefeated, 12-0, going into this SEC championship game weekend with Alabama. Georgia last week beat Georgia Tech very closely, but they did beat Georgia Tech. Um, Georgia's the second best team in college football. I think anybody that tells you that they're not is crazy. I don't think they're the best team in college football, though. That is where I'm not going to lie and say, yeah, they're the best team. No, the fuck they're not. No, no, they're not. The problem I have with people is that we talk about this year in sports, but yet we want to use the past couple of years. No, we need to stop doing that shit. They looked okay. They're the defending champions for 2 straight years. But that has nothing to do with the team they have now. They lost Jalen Carter. They lost uh, Nolan Smith. Think of all the players that Georgia has lost over the last 2 fucking years. But people want to continue to act like that's the same Georgia. No, the fuck it's not. This is a way different Georgia team. And if they lose to Alabama, then they are not making the college playoffs. I don't know why the fuck people want to put that resume out there and be like, well, they're the defending two. They have won 2 straight championships. They ain't the same team. They don't even have the same fucking quarterback that they won the championships with. You realize Stetson Bennett won them 2 titles? He is in the NFL. Why the fuck are we acting like this is the same fucking team? It is not. If Georgia loses to Bama, then they're not making the college playoffs. I don't give a shit about what they did 2 years ago. I'm talking about this year. And this year, they shouldn't make the playoffs. I don't give a fuck if you won 2 titles last year, the last 2 years. You're not good enough to make it this year. Because you lost to Bama. You're not good enough. And for everybody's sake, and for everybody's sake, sorry about that. And for everybody's sake, Georgia, for everybody's sake, Georgia better beat Bama. Georgia better beat Bama. For everybody's sake. Coming in at number 3, it's the Oregon Ducks. They are 11-1. They also had a rivalry game this past week. Oregon State and they won. Um, I got Oregon at number 3. Now Friday will tell a lot about what Oregon is. Um, they play Washington again, the only team that actually beat them this season. Um, so if Oregon um beats Washington, then Oregon's in. I don't think this is a hard thing to really master. If Oregon beats Washington, they're in. What I do think is going to be the hardest part is the four, and that is what I think a lot of people are having a hard time with. Because that four for the college playoffs was for the rankings that they had was Florida State, and like I said, I don't have Florida State there. I don't give a shit if Florida State is undefeated. If you don't dominate Louisville, to me, you don't make the playoffs because I don't trust that you can actually beat Michigan, Georgia, or Oregon or Washington. I don't believe you can beat one of those teams, and I don't think you can beat Texas. And let's say Bama does win, you can't beat Bama. You can't beat them. So for me, number 4 is Washington, and I've been saying this for the last couple of days. I've been saying this for since I started the college play, the Crazy Six. Oregon and Washington should make the college playoffs. I know it's crazy to say. Oh my God, Pac-12 might make the playoffs. Holy shit, 2 Pac-12 teams. Washington has the better resume. Florida State loses, Bama loses. Let's say Texas also loses. The fact that Ohio State is still fifth and Washington is third, but if let's say everything falls the way it falls, Florida State loses, Texas loses, Bama loses, and Washington loses, you cannot sit up here and tell me Ohio State, who lost to Michigan, is better than Washington, who beat Oregon already. The one game you were supposed to win, fuck the conference championships. The one game you were supposed to win, you didn't win. You did not beat Michigan when you had a chance to. And to me, playing for a conference championship is way more important than you looking like a team that could play for one. Washington goes, if everything falls the way it falls, let's say Washington loses, let's say Texas loses, Florida State lose, Bama also lost. Even if Bama wins and Georgia loses, Washington has the better resume out of all of them. They do. You can hate it, but it's true. Doesn't change the fucking facts. Washington beat Oregon when they were in the top 10. They beat USC when they were ranked. They beat Oregon when they were in the top 15. Oregon State when they were in the top 15. What's the conversation here? I can't remember who else they started their season off with. I want to say Michigan State. They started off against some fucking body. I can't remember who. And they beat them. Washington is the fourth best team in college football. I don't want to hear shit about Georgia, Bama. If Georgia loses to Bama, and Washington is the team that they have to compare the resumes with, it's not a comparison. Washington should be in. Because then I will easily go and look at Georgia and be like, okay, who Georgia beat? Ole Miss? Missouri? It's not a better win than now the conference champion Oregon, who they already played and already proved they can beat. And I've been saying this: if this game is close, just like it was in Seattle earlier this year, Washington should be in if everything falls the way it falls. And I don't give a shit if Florida State does win the conference championship. If they didn't dominate Louisville, I'm putting Washington in. Ohio State is not. You can put Penn State and Notre Dame all in the top tens. Ohio State would never be able. Ohio State is not beating Georgia and they're not beating Michigan, and they barely could probably beat Oregon. Coming in number 5 is Texas. Come on, they're 11-1. They play Oklahoma State this Saturday for the Big 12 championship game. This is the most intriguing game for me personally because I just Big 12 championship games has been very shaky the last couple of years, especially if you ask TCU last year and some other teams. The team that goes in as the favorite doesn't always win it. So this kind of feels like what Texas is kind of walking into. But right now for me, they're fifth. They're in. Even if they win, and let's say Bama wins, Florida State's out. Texas, Bama, Michigan, Oregon, or Washington. You got your four. I'm cool with that four. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm good with that four. I'm cool with that four. You got your SEC. You got your brand name conference. I'm good. I'm good with that four. Everybody else might not be, but I'm good with that four. And for me, Texas is fifth. They're right over the number 16 on my list, and that is Bama. Bama, 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 Bama. They should have lost Auburn, but Auburn's defense sucks. I don't know what the fuck that coverage was. That was a terrible coverage. What the fuck was that? Oh good god, that was terrible. Um, Georgia, Alabama are going to be a very interesting game, more so because of what the significant value of it. But me personally, I think Alabama has to win the conference championship. Like, yeah, two losses is one thing we all know. If you got two losses, you ain't going no fucking way anyway. But the fact of the matter is, if you win the conference championship game, to me, you have to hope Texas wins the Big 12 championship game. Because yes, to a lot of people, no matter what, Texas is, Bama's in because they beat Georgia. But it will help your resume more if you actually beat the conference champion of the Big 12. And for me, just because you beat Georgia doesn't automatically mean your ass is in the fucking the college playoffs. Like that is a terrible thought process. But because the SEC has built themselves so highly up there that it feels like if you win, you're in. And it's like, I don't like that scenario. I don't like that thought process because that tells a lot of other teams, like, no matter what, no matter how good you are, you ain't making the fucking playoffs. And that's a bad way of looking at it. Next year, when they go to these 12-team playoffs, I'm looking forward to it because I think it's going to be so goddamn intriguing to see how this all going to play out. By the way, uh, Georgia plays Alabama next year, September 28th. So I think that's like what, not the first week, second week, third week of the college football. So that's gonna be a pretty intriguing game. I can't wait to see how that's gonna look. Let's get into it now. Now, my eyes on college football, conference championship week, week 14. Here we go. Y'all know how I do this, man. I got 4 games that I'm looking at, watching very closely, admiring, paying attention to. So let's get into it. My skeptical game of the week, and that is Louisville versus Florida State. Um, it's pretty obvious why. Louisville, like I said, lost to Kentucky, you know, which is not a good fucking thing at all to do, is lose to Kentucky. Um, but Florida State struggled against Florida. And as much as I think Florida State, um, Florida State doesn't really know who they are, I also feel like Florida State, I guess, I think they finally found their identity on offense, which is run the ball. You have a quarterback that I don't think you really trust that much into. You don't believe that much into. So probably running the ball might be the best situation for you. But at the same time, man, Louisville coming off of a loss against Kentucky, I feel like Florida State needs to dominate this game. I don't care that the polls have them at 4. You have to dominate this fucking game. And to me, even though you're undefeated, it just feels like you're getting put in the college playoffs just because you're undefeated. And that is, to me, not a good enough reason. If you're not dominant in this game, to me, I don't think your ass should be in the college playoffs. Because I don't think it's the college, that game is going to be competitive. And for me, it's all about competitive. It ain't about who's the 4 best teams. No, nigga. Who's going to give me a competitive, actual fucking game that makes me say, no, I got to stay inside to watch this fucking game on New Year's or New Year's Day or New Year's Eve? I don't want to see a blowout in the fucking semifinals like we always do every fucking year. I want an actual competitive game. And if Florida State cannot be competitive, hey, they ass should not be in the goddamn college playoffs. I don't know why the fuck people act like this is so fucking hard. No, nigga, you gotta be competitive. Fuck it. You gotta be competitive. My most interesting game of the week is a game I've been talking about for a while, and that is Georgia versus Alabama. Um, Georgia's won. Then they had Alabama at like I want to say 8 in the college playoffs this year, college playoff rankings this week. My feeling on this game is my feeling on this game is just like people keep screaming about the Pac-12 game is technically is a knockout game for Oregon, but it's not a knockout game for Washington. And I know people will sit up here and think that's crazy, but no, for me, this is a knockout game. I don't care that Georgia is a 2-time defending champion and that means they need to be in the playoffs. No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that shit at all. To me, this is a knockout game. If Alabama does not beat Georgia, beat them pretty convincingly, it's gonna be bad. You know, if Alabama don't beat Georgia and Georgia beats Alabama, Georgia wins, Georgia's in. If Alabama loses, that pretty much means they're out. But if Alabama wins, doesn't mean Georgia automatically, if everything goes the way it goes, Georgia's automatically just in now. That's ridiculous. No, 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 no. You don't have the resume of the team to say, yeah, that automatically means that. No, the fuck it doesn't. No, it doesn't. This game is going to be more interesting because of how is Georgia going to play Alabama, more so of how Alabama's going to play Georgia. Um, Jalen Moreau is starting to kind of come on late into the college football season, but he's still not great throwing the ball. Like, don't get that play fucking twisted on Saturday when he had no choice but to put that shit in. I still don't think Alabama's a great throwing the ball team, and that to me is what kills Georgia when you could spread out their secondary and actually go at them. I don't think they're that team, and if you're trying to run the ball on Georgia, you're probably going to lose. So I think this game is going to be really hard for Bama. My upset game of the week. So I had two. I had one, and then I erased it this morning. So the one I had was SMU versus Tulane. I think Tulane's gonna probably win it, but at the same time, it's such a game that they can probably lose it too. But I crossed it out and I put Oklahoma State versus Texas. Texas blew out Texas Tech, 57-7, I think it was. Do you still have more in the tank? And that's kind of the conversation I think when it comes to Texas. Do you have more in the tank? I don't know if Texas wins this game. Like I said, the Big 12 championship game is always such a fucking questionable game. Last year it was K State, Kansas State beating TCU when TCU kind of needed to win that game, even though they got in the college playoffs. It kind of felt like, bruh, you lost to these dudes still? Like, that's ridiculous. Same thing I feel with Texas. Oklahoma State is a really good team. Like, even don't get the record fooled. They are in the top. They're in the polls. Oklahoma State can actually beat Texas. They can beat them. Will they? Is kind of where I kind of have this. I don't know. But if you had to ask me out of all these games this week, which game I believe is going to happen, really could happen, Oklahoma State beating Texas. I actually believe that could actually happen. I actually believe that could actually happen. So, yeah. And game of the week is clearly Oregon versus Washington. That is kind of like obvious. Rematch of earlier this year. What do I think of this game and what do I think is going to happen? I don't know. I don't really have a winner for this game. I really don't. Washington has struggled so much since that Oregon game defensively that I don't think that team is maybe they're gonna wake up and play this game. They're gonna play really hard in this game. I'm assuming. But Oregon is such a diverse offense and they can do so many great things. I don't know how this is gonna go personally. But I do know one thing: it's gonna be one of the best goddamn games we've all gonna see this year. I hope it's not a blowout. I swear, I hope it's not a blowout. My God, please don't let it be a blowout. I wanted to be competitive because then it would make my statement, what I've been saying for the last couple of days, weeks, months, obvious, which is these are the two best teams in college football. Despite what y'all want to say about records and fuck this and all that, they're the two best teams in college football. If you don't believe it, fuck out of here. All right, let's get into it. So, NFL. Um, so there's a couple things I gotta talk about before I get into it. So last week, did I talk about it? I don't think I did. Buffalo fired Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator. Um, and now the offensive coordinator is Joe Brady, who used to be LSU's old offensive coordinator when we went to the national championship and won it with Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, and Jordan Jefferson. And he was also Carolina's offensive coordinator until Matt Rule decided that he was going to call plays and fire them, which that shit is amazing. Um, um, wow. Maybe if you would have kept him, you probably would never got fired. I don't know. But and Matt Canada also got fired for being Pittsburgh Steelers offensive coordinator. Thank the Lord. Um, and company all that together is also um speaking of Carolina, Frank Reich got fired, the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. What I think of these firings the last couple of weeks. You needed to do it. Now, the Frank Wright firing, and I'm a Saints fan, so the Frank Wright firing, I felt like it was a little too, too premature. I don't think you really need to fire him this year. But it could go into the fact, yes, do I think the owner's a little bit stupid? Probably. I mean, maybe he's just like, I want to win so bad that I'm just going to bypass everything and just get me one. That could be a thing. But I also feel like this team wasn't going to get better. And I think people are sitting up here and trying to act like that team was going to get better. That team was never going to get better. It was never going to get extremely better in the next couple of years. Like in a year, you still had no draft capital. You had no draft capital, and you had an offense that was getting worse as the season was progressing to the point where you're now questioning, damn, did y'all fuck up on a number one pick? Like it's questioning time. Like that is how bad that offense was for Carolina. Terrible offense. Now, if he's to what I've been saying about Bryce Young, that is, he's not a franchise guy. He's not that guy. I mean, he's good. He can do some things, but what I mean by a franchise guy is like he walks in and immediately changes the franchise. CJ Stroud was a change the franchise guy. You don't believe me? Name me one person on the Texans that you want that's not named CJ Stroud. And I know what you're gonna say. Tank Dell, Tank Dell, and all them do that shit only because of CJ Stroud. Will Anderson, right? Offensively though, Dalton Schultz, Devin Singletary, maybe. This is why I felt like if I was Carolina, I would have drafted Anthony Richardson. Not even CJ Stroud. I would have drafted Anthony Richardson because Frank Wright needs a particular quarterback to run his particular offense. And that, and he also did not have any weapons. You needed an athletic quarterback that could get you yardage with his legs. And that is definitely not Bryce Young. So yeah, he needed to kind of get fired. I would have waited a year and a half just to see if he could turn it around. But if you felt like it was probably never going to get turned around, okay, do it. Whereas for the Ken Dorsey and the Matt Canada fires, it needed to happen. It needed to happen. I talk about another team that needs to also get rid of their offensive coordinator ASAP. Um, Another football story that I thought was so funny when I saw it, and I was like, "You sure this is a football story?" Tom Brady said that the NFL is getting too mediocre. It's mediocre now. The NFL is mediocre, which is the funniest shit to say from a person like Tom Brady because some of y'all was like, some people I saw was like, "Oh, that's his competitive fire." He's nigga, are you serious? Mediocre? That's what you call in the NFL, nigga? Did you not win a championship like 2 fucking years ago, 3 years ago? The fuck you talking about? Did you not wait till the NFC South was at its weakest to come to the NFC South? The fuck are you talking about? The fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about? Did you like Alex Smith played? Alex Smith said, "Dude, you played in like the worst division of all time. What the fuck are you talking about?" It's crazy to have someone like Tom Brady sit there and literally physically say, "Yo, the NFL is bad. It's mediocre." Fuck out of here, dude. Are you crazy? Stop that. No, 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 no. So let's get to it, man. The big four. My big four of this week. Starting off is the Philadelphia Eagles. 10-1. Played Buffalo last week. That's another thing I gotta say also before I get into that. I said this last night, my brother Juan, and I said it here. Um, Josh Allen is not a franchise quarterback. Josh Allen is not a franchise quarterback. Josh Allen is a very talented quarterback. He can win you games if everything goes right. And I know everybody says that about, but Brandon, that's every team. If everything goes right. But if Josh Allen is not a franchise quarterback. He's not. I feel like people are mad that people every time you see his game, you expect him to just be like 363 yards. He had, what, 4 total touchdowns against the Eagles Sunday. Scored 34 points. But everybody neglected the fact that he had the ball first in overtime and literally let the Eagles get the ball in overtime, walk down the field, and score a touchdown. If you are a franchise quarterback, you are looking at your head coach and telling them, keep the fucking field goal team on the sidelines. We are going for this shit. He didn't either. He let them kick a field goal, and then immediately, Eagles got the ball, scored a touchdown. Okay. I just wanted to say, yeah, Josh Allen is not a franchise quarterback. He's Phillip Rivers. He's Phillip Rivers. And the Bills are the Chargers, the San Diego Chargers. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. Just teams are better than you. That's it. Nothing wrong with that. Let's get into it now. Like I said, at number one is the Eagles. They're 10-1. They beat the Bills 37-34 in overtime, came back and won that game. And they got the 49ers coming up this weekend. I just want people to understand something. Jalen Hurts is different. Unlike Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts is a franchise quarterback. Holy shit. I think it's time for us to have this conversation. I mean, like, seriously have a conversation. Jalen Hurts, real shit. Jalen Hurts is in the Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow conversation. The man wins. He wins. He fucking wins. I'm not even talking about just last year. I'm talking about this year. The man has a perfect record against teams over 500 or better. 500 or better. He has a perfect record. You know how hard that shit is? He's what you think Josh Allen is. He's what you think Dak Prescott should be. He's what you continuously think these fucking these quarterbacks are, and they never live up to it. He is it. There it is. You fucking see it. Live and in action. In every damn game I hear people sit on TV every fucking game and say, I just think Jalen Hurts should do different. And his offense should be a little bit more. What the fuck are you talking about? If this was Patrick Mahomes and he was winning this way, y'all would love it. Look here, Pat. Boy, they found a way to win games. No. Jalen Hurts is a winner. Fuck he is. He was a winner at Alabama. He was a winner at Oklahoma. His only year in Oklahoma. He's a fucking winner. Stop playing like this man ain't in that conversation of Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. Get the fuck out of here. He is the NFC's Patrick Mahomes. The man gonna find a way to win. I wish that motherfucker was my quarterback. But he is my brother Ramon's quarterback. Son of a bitch. He got a really great quarterback. Son of a bitch. Shout out to my brother Ramon. He is an Eagles fan. He loves the fucking Eagles. And I can't tell him not to, because the motherfuckers are good. Them motherfuckers are good. 10-1, man. 10 and goddamn 1. And number two, speaking of another quarterback that a lot of people need to stop playing on his name, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. They are at 9-3. They're on bye this week. They won against the Los Angeles Chargers 20-10. That's another team. That's another team that just they find a way to win. They find a way to win. As much as you can hate it and you don't like it, the Ravens are just as goddamn good as the Kansas City Chiefs, as all these other teams. They are that fucking good. Kansas City cannot afford the Ravens to get the number one seed. They can't afford it. If they go to Baltimore, which by the way, last year they went to Baltimore and lost to Baltimore. If they go to Baltimore and play Baltimore for the AFC Championship game, Kansas City losing that game. Kansas City losing that game. They're losing that game. I feel like a lot of people don't want to admit that, but I admit it for you. I'll tell you for yourself. I'll tell you. They're gonna lose that game. They're gonna lose that game. Baltimore's defense is going to eat up that offensive line. They're going to destroy that offensive line. That front four, front seven of Baltimore, oh, they're going to kill them. They're going to kill them. That great Kansas City defense, yeah, Lamar Jackson is going to have at least a good 100 yards rushing because Baltimore is going to do exactly what the Eagles did late in that game. They're going to do exactly what the Eagles did. When you blitz, we going to run. Lamar Jackson. And that is why I feel like Baltimore can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. 9-3. They are the best team in the AFC. Despite what people keep screaming about Kansas City, Kansas City. Baltimore could beat Kansas City, and it's not even that close. It won't be close. At number 3 is the San Francisco 49ers, and they are 8-3. And like I said, they play the Eagles this Sunday. They play the Eagles this Sunday in Philly. This game is gonna be so goddamn hard to really figure out because I think the Eagles win it personally, but at the same time, the Eagles might be without Landon Johnson, and that might be a problem. Um, the 49ers are not 8-3. The problem what I have with people with the 49ers is yes, they are a good team when they're healthy. The problem is what happens when they're not healthy. And I've seen when they're not healthy. But we in the world, this media, the sports media, ignores the fact that San Francisco didn't look good when they didn't have the Debo Samuels and the Trent Williams. But now that they're back, it's like, oh, San Francisco is the best team in fucking NFL. It's like, bro, no, they're not. Brock Purdy is not that guy. He's not that guy. I've seen him when he didn't have just Debo and Trenton. Imagine Christian McCaffrey going down. Imagine George Kittle. And we sitting up here being like, but they're gonna come on, bro. They're 8-3. They're third in my list. To be honest with you, I couldn't put Detroit third this week because they looked horrible on Thanksgiving Day. That shit was a terrible display of football. Good God Almighty. Yeah, I couldn't put them there. Sorry, I just couldn't. And then number 4, if y'all know me by now, I don't have the usual 4 at my standards, and that is the Denver Broncos. Hey man, they're 6-5 going against the Texans this upcoming weekend. That could be pretty much a conversation of who's going to get that real wild card spot in the playoffs between the Texans and the Broncos. Um, let's be real. If the Broncos, looking at what the Broncos have become in the last 5 games since the starting off 1-5, and then also starting off 1-5, and then also giving up 70 fucking points against Miami. If you told me the Denver Broncos will give up 70 points in an NFL game, and by week 13, they still have a chance to win not only a playoff spot but probably the division, I would tell you, kiss my ass, you're lying. And don't lie to me like that. What the fuck's wrong with you? But it's fucking real. It could happen. Denver could actually get in the playoffs, and also they're still in line for the division for Kansas City. It's crazy to think that, but yes, Denver could actually make the fucking playoffs. They gave up 70 fucking points in a football game this year. An actual football, a professional football game. They gave up 70 fucking points, and they are 6-5. Not great, but I can't ignore that. 5 straight victories. I can't ignore that. I'm sorry, I can't. I can't. Now let's get into it. Levels of warning for the NFL this upcoming week. Let's get into it. I know how I do this. 3 levels of warning. Yellow is caution. Orange, panic time. And third is DOA. That's red, baby. Red. Let's get into it. So, my yellow, my caution team is those Lions at 8-3. I gotta put them at caution, man. Detroit, Detroit. Like I said, one game is a coincidence. Second, two games is like, oh, okay, it's starting to become a pattern. Third game, fuck me. This is bad. I don't think Sunday's gonna be a bad game for Detroit. I think they're gonna get back to who they have been for most of the season against the Saints Sunday. Um, but I can't ignore the fact that at the end of the day, Detroit um played the way they played against the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving. Like that's something I cannot ignore and act like it didn't fucking happen because it did. This is the second straight week where you struggle against a divisional team, and again, it's divisional. Bears and Packers divisional, but at the same time, man, you can't have the games you've been having and not have me be a little cautious on you. It's like, oh, that's not good. Last week I was talking about how if you won the game and the Eagles was to lose at some point, you could have jumped the Eagles and got a chance. And now it's like, oh, well, you're the third seed in the NFC. You're not probably gonna fall anytime soon. You're probably gonna be the third seed, but despite also Sunday, if the 49ers lose to the Eagles, you jump back to the second seed, but you're not catching the Eagles. And I still have high hopes for Detroit, but those two games back to back, you won one and lost one. But the way you won and lost these games, man, for 2 straight weeks, you didn't look good, man. You turn over the ball. It's just like it's a you're going completely the opposite of what you did last year, which is last year you started so badly, but when you turn it on, you look great. And now the last 2 weeks, it looks like you're reverting back to what you was last year. Whereas you started off great, and now you're going into this self doubt, like, oh shit, we might not be as good as we think. So you're losing a lot of these games. Yeah, that shit shouldn't happen. You should be very good at what you do. But I get it, the hype, the allure of what you have been this season starting to catch up to you, and I think you're starting to feel it. And yeah, that's not good. That's really not good. My panic team, Orange, is the Saints, 5-6. Um, Matter of fact, I'm gonna switch that around. So my Saints gonna be DOA, but my panic team gonna be the Vikings, and that is six. They're 6-6. Um, Yeah, I just switched it up on my own damn podcast. The Vikings are 6-6. Um, Last night they lost to the Bears. The Bears beat them by field goals. I'm dead ass serious. The Bears did not score a touchdown at all. They won 12-10 on a Monday night football game. What the fuck? The Vikings are 6-6. They say have a chance to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're making the playoffs. Um, the Josh Dobbs magic has officially worn off. We forget that Josh Dobbs, when he was the starter this season, was what 1-8 with Arizona, 1-7 with Arizona. He won one game, the Dallas game, and that was it. Yeah, he's won 2 games with the Vikings, one as a starter, and that was the Saints game. But we forget that after the second quarter, when they scored 21 unanswered points, they scored 3 points the entire second half. That was it. 3 points. They only scored 3 points in the entire second half. So, sorry, sorry. So the Vikings, and in the next 2 games after the Saints game, you have lost to Denver late, and now you've lost to the Chicago Bears late. Yeah, yeah, that's not that's not good. They get Justin Jefferson back. They just activated him off of the IR. That's great. But this team's not going anywhere. They ain't going anywhere. I know it sounds crazy to say that, but they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. Just not. Uh, Josh Dobbs, we forget, is a backup. That's what he is. That's his profession. The reason why he can come off the bench against Atlanta and win against Atlanta is because he's used to playing backyard football. He's a fucking backup. The reason why he beat the Saints first year, first game of the season, as finally knowing the playbook a little bit. But like I said, that second half, he didn't do shit. So yeah, and like I said, DOA is the Saints. They're 5-6. Remember when I was talking about? I'll get back to firing up the offensive coordinators and coaches. Yeah, here it is. Fire Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. Now, I'm not like everybody that's saying fire Dennis Allen because of just because you don't like the way the team looks. No, I'll explain why I say fire Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, for the most part, is a defensive minded coach. And his defense, for the most part, has not been the problem. We actually are tops in takeaways. If you actually watch the game against Atlanta, we got like 2 picks in that game. We're taking the ball away. Something that we haven't done for like a year and a half, 2 years now, is take the ball away. We're like in the top 5 of takeaways. It's crazy to think that shit, but they were like in the top 5 of takeaways. The Saints, defensively, it's not the problem. Dennis Allen is doing what he does. That is the thing. But, and this is the thing I've always said about, head coaches that come from the coordinator's position with like Brandon Staley and Todd Bowles. If you become the head coach and the thing that you was coordinating, defense, is the worst fucking part of your team, that is a you problem. You're supposed to be great at defense. That's why you got the job, right? They saw you at some team and it was like, that dude can coach. If he could leave that court, if he could leave those guys, he could probably go. But that's not the same. Brandon Staley's defense is the worst part of his team. Tampa Bay, that is the worst part of their team. The reason why Mike Tomlin still has a job after all these years, the reason why Mike Tomlin still has a job after all of these years is because no matter how bad that offense is, and they are absolutely fucking terrible, they still find a way to win games because of the defense. I remember a couple years ago when they were 11-0. That offense sucked, but that defense was phenomenal. They're always going to find a way to win games because of the defense. And it's kind of what the Saints are. The reason why I've been on this fire peak, and this is the reason why I say now fire Dennis Allen, because it feels like you're losing as a head coach. Yes, the one side of the ball is great, but the other side is not. And because you don't want to change, you got to get rid of the person. Pete Carmichael should have been fired at the beginning of this fucking season. Should have been fired. When we could not score in the red zone, which Sunday we inverted right back into that. We couldn't score in the red zone. And it's not that we don't have the weapons, because the last 3 times when we did start winning, we went on that little mini winning streak. What was the one thing we were doing? Using Taysom Hill in the red zone, Alvin Kamara in the red zone, running the ball, doing what we need to do to get in the red zone. It seems like last week we went against Atlanta. We went right back to what the fuck we did before the Colts game, which is we're gonna throw these fades and we're gonna. Why are you throwing the ball in the red zone? Why? When you have a well-known fucking weapon in Taysom Hill, and they can't stop him. Nobody can stop him. And your stupid ass is still throwing the ball in the red zone. Pete Carmichael needs to get fired. But if Dennis Allen is also losing the team, which seems like it's happening because it's falling on deaf ears every time He gets on the podium and says, "We just got to execute better. We got to do this better, bruh." Like Alvin Kamara said, "Hey, bruh, it's a time for talking and it's a time for showing the fuck up. Tired of talking. Let's do this shit. We know what we need to do. Do it. Do it." But you're not doing it. That's one of the reasons why he's going to get fired. The second reason is why I had the Denver Broncos in the Big Four. Sean Payton. Sean Payton, who was the Saints head coach for what, 10, 15 years, got traded during the offseason this year to the Denver Broncos to be the head coach. And despite how bad Denver was earlier in the year, they have a chance to make the playoffs. Dennis Allen is in the worst division. 3 teams that have no franchise quarterback. Well, Bryce Young, but Carolina's in a terrible, they have no roster around him. But 2 teams that have no franchise quarterbacks, and somehow, some way, you manage to lose to both of them. If we lose Sunday, which I think we will, Atlanta beats the Jets, and Tampa Bay beats Arizona, we're third in the division with no way outside of literally going on a 5-game winning streak after Sunday. 4-game winning streak after Sunday. Which we can do. I'm not gonna say that like we can't. We can do it. We got we got the Carolina Panthers, Giants both come to us. And then we got the Rams, and I think we go to Tampa. And then we end the season with Atlanta coming to us. So we can do it. But how much of faith do we have in our head coach? Which is where it is all lies. Because if they don't have much faith in you after 5-7, we need to start thinking about the offense. Me personally, I would go straight up and hire either Ben Jones from Detroit, offensive coordinator for Detroit, Ben Jones, or Eric Bieniemy. Or like I told my brother Juan yesterday, I would not be surprised if Bill Belichick ends up in New Orleans. Because for as much as we sit here and we bitch and we moan and we complain about the Saints, we are hurting ourselves. There is no team in the league that can really stop us when we're on. The problem is we're not on. We're inconsistent as fuck. You don't want to fire Pete Carmichael? All right, cool. Dennis Allen, then you're gonna get fired. Derek Carr, to me, I don't think anybody's gonna take his deal. Nobody's gonna take his contract. So we might have to eat that shit. We might just have to deal with that shit. But for me personally, after a while, it's gonna be like, where do we fall in the draft? If we don't beat Carolina in week 14, if we don't beat Carolina in week 14, it's to the point where I'm like, man, fuck all that, man. What can we get? What are we gonna be in the draft? Because if that is the case, we need to draft a quarterback. That's how I feel. But that is my levels of caution. My levels of warning. Lions is yellow, cautions. Vikings are panic time, and of course the Saints are DOA. Next week, well, Sunday. I think I'm gonna do Sunday. I got Bleed Black and Gold, of course the Saints and Detroit game. But then I'm gonna do a special I Bleed Sports, which is gonna be uh my Crazy Six ending, and I'm gonna talk about the New Year's Six bowls and its fertility, and I'm gonna talk about the final week of college football, well, conference championship week, and of course give you my preview of what I think of these New Year's Six bowls, and of course the final reveal of my Crazy Six this season. Until then, I am Brandon Janeau. Peace.